Well, good morning. Go ahead and stand up and join us. Come, let us worship our King. Come, let us bow at His feet. He has done great things. See what our Savior has done. See how His love overcomes. He has done great things. He has done great things. Yeah. Oh, hero of heaven, you conquered the grave. You free every captive. You break every chain. Oh God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, awake and alive. Oh Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high. Oh God, you have done great things. Here we go. You've been faithful through every storm. Yeah, you'll be faithful forevermore. You have done great things. Yes, you have. Oh, and I know you will do it again. For your promises, yes and amen. You will do great things. Oh God, you do great things. Yeah. Oh hero of heaven, you conquered the grave. You free every captive and break every chain. Oh God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, awake and alive. Oh Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high. Oh God, you have done great things. Oh, hallelujah, God, above it all. Hallelujah, God, unshakable. Hallelujah, you have done great things. Oh, hallelujah, God, above it all. Hallelujah, God, unshakable. Hallelujah, you have done great things. You've done great things. Come on, sing. You're hero of heaven. You conquered the grave. You free every captive. You break every chain. Oh God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, awake and alive. Oh Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high. Oh God, you have done great things. You have done great things. Oh God, you do great things. Yeah.
Well, good morning, Mission. What a way to kick it off, declaring together that God does great things among us. It's great to see you with us. If you're new here, or if you've not been coming for a long time, we have an area that's just for you, and it's called The Hub, just on the other side of the lobby. We'd love the chance to meet you, get to know you just a little bit better, tell you what's going on here at Mission and how you can be involved. And then we have just a small gift as our way of saying thanks for carving out an hour of your week to be with us. Well, we got some more singing to do, but before then, let me tell you about two quick things. If you are a junior higher or if you're a high schooler in here, or maybe more importantly, if you're the parent of a junior higher or a high schooler, then you should know that BWE, the best weekend ever, is coming up at the end of February. But the most important thing for you to know right now is that registration ends this Friday. So if you want your junior higher or high schooler to not miss out on this incredible experience, then go to missionaz.org, sign up on the BWE banner, just click that and it'll take you exactly where you need to go. This is gonna be the kind of event that if you've got a student, they're not gonna wanna miss out on this. So serve them well and help them register for that this week. Second thing is that we are kicking off our brand new first Love Works trip of the year, and we're going to Rocky Point, Mexico. And we're gonna build a house. And so if you've never built a house before and that intimidates you, then I would say sign up and go, because it's gonna be a great step of faith for you to take. You don't have to know what you're doing. You don't have to have the tools. We'll supply all of that as you go. But March 6th through 9th is when that trip's gonna happen. So go to missionaz.org again, click on the Love Works banner, and we want you to be a part of that trip. And you can get more information and register for that there. Well, we have a great service for you. We have some more singing to do. But before then, why don't you look around yourself and find one person that you've never seen before, introduce yourself to them, and then we'll keep singing.
You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you, I worship you. You are Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, you are here, yes, turning lives around. yes, it's who you are. Even when I can't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop. Come on, even when, oh, even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop. Oh, even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Yes, it is. Oh, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Oh, that is who you are. Yes, that is who you are. Oh, that is who you are. Oh, that is who you are. Yeah. Oh, yes, today and tomorrow. Oh, it's who you are. Yes, it's who you are. No height, no depth, no life or final breath could ever separate us from your love. No failure, no mistake, no loneliness or pain could ever separate us from your love. Could ever separate us from your love. And on the other side of everything I'm afraid of, you were standing with your arms wide open. Yes, wide open. Even in my deepest doubts and wonder, you're standing with your arms wide open. Wide open. I'm healed, made strong. I found where I belong. Forever I'm alive now in your love. Yes, I am. Oh, I'm changed, unchained by your amazing grace. Forever I'm alive now in your love. Oh, and on the other side of everything I'm afraid of, come on, you're standing with your eyes wide open, wide open. Even in my deepest doubts and wonder, you're standing with your eyes wide open. Wide open. Yes, wide open. If I lay my bed in darkness, if I try my best to hide, well, you know the farthest ocean, you give the morning its light. I can't run from your presence, there's no place that far. So I'll run to you, my Savior. Oh, there's safety in your arms. If I lay my bed in darkness, if I try my best to hide, well, you know the farthest ocean, give the morning, it's a light. I can't run from your presence. There's no place that far, so I run to you, my Savior. There's safety in your arms, yeah. Oh, there's safety in your arms. On the other side of everything I'm afraid of, you're standing with your eyes wide open, wide open. Even in my deepest doubts and wonder, oh, you're standing with your eyes wide open, on the other side of everything I'm afraid of. Come on. You're standing with your arms, yes, with your arms wide open. Even in my deepest doubts and wonder, standing with your arms wide open, wide open. Thank you all so much for joining us, for singing along with us. Go ahead and grab a seat and turn your attentions to the screen. Our pastor, Joel Thomas, has a special message for us.
Hey everybody, I hope you're having a great Sunday morning. I'm bummed I'm not there with you, but I wanted to take just a second to tell you about two things I need your help with, and then I want to tell you about something special we have for you today. The first thing is this. Last fall, during our Transformer series, I told you that this February, I wanted to do a relationship series called Bow Chicka Wow Wow. I really like the title, but apparently nobody else did. So we are doing the relationship series, but we're not calling it that. We're calling it the Anatomy of Intimacy. And here's why. This is sort of a different type of series. We're gonna talk about the inner workings of healthy, intimate relationships. And so whether you're somebody who's married or not, whether you're in a relationship or not, whether you wanna be in a relationship or you're looking to get out of a relationship, I think this series is gonna be helpful for you. So here's what I need your help with. I need your help getting the word out. You know some people who maybe are dealing with some challenges in their relationships, or they're just looking to enrich the relationship that they're in. I think they would find this series helpful, and I want to ask your help in inviting them to get them here. The series starts next weekend, is part one, and so you got a week to let some people know about it, make an invitation, and I look forward to kicking that off next weekend. Second thing is, annually we do a survey to get feedback from you on sort of your experience here at Mission, and this is something we benchmark year to year. We've done the same survey the last 5 years, and this is for everyone that's in our audience. So if you come 5 times or less, we still see you as a guest. We're glad you're here, but we want you to fill out one side of this survey. And then if you've been here more than 5 times, we would love for you to fill out the regular attendee side of the survey. Once you've completed that, you can drop that in the bucket, but I really would love for you to take just a minute now, if you haven't already filled that out, to fill that out and then drop it in the bucket when it comes by. Last thing is, today is a really special day. A really good friend of mine, Jarrett Stevens, is here to teach. I've known Jarrett for almost 2 decades now. We've done retreats together. We've served in ministry together. And then he and his wife moved to Chicago to start a church just before my wife Jen and I moved out here to Arizona to be here at Mission. We've kept up. He's a fantastic communicator. But the reason I invited Jarrett is because he wrote a book on prayer, and I just can't think of a better way to follow up our Fresh Start series than with the content Jarrett's going to teach on today. In his book, in which I got an advance copy several weeks ago, he talks about how to make prayer more accessible and how many people struggle with prayer, but he really gives us sort of some helpful tips and some perspective on prayer that I've just not seen anywhere else. So I hope you really enjoy that today. We actually have his book in the lobby for those of you who are more interested in that after hearing his teaching today. He's gonna be out here to greet some people, but I'm super thrilled that Jarrett's with us today, and I hope you'll do as you always do. When he comes to the stage, you'll give him a warm Mission welcome. Well, that's it for me. I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday. Sunday, and I look forward to seeing you as we kick off our brand new series next weekend.
Well, as Joel said, I'm not Jarrett, sorry. If that was confusing to anybody. As Joel said, we've got a survey that we would love if each of you would take a minute and fill out. And so our ushers are walking up and down the rows. If you didn't get one or if you didn't get a pen, they're gonna be ready for you. We're gonna give you about a minute to fill that out. And then at the conclusion of that, our ushers are gonna come back and receive the offering, and then we'll continue with the service.
Well, good morning, Mission Church. How you doing this weekend? Everyone's all hyped up from filling out a survey. Nothing like following a survey. So I'm gonna try and cap on that energy right now. And it's good to be with you. My name is Jarrett Stevens, and this is my second time being back with you guys. I am so grateful to be back here. I'm so grateful for this church, but I want to let you know why specifically I love this church so much. It's because I love your lead pastor. I love Joel and I love Jen. Can we hear it for them and their family? Our kids love their kids. In fact, we got to, as Joel mentioned that video, we got to work together. Like, I've known Joel since before Jen, okay? So like before he got better. And we've known each other forever. We got to work together. In fact, one of the things I love most about Joel is his generosity. When we were moving to Atlanta, for Joel and I to work together, he actually arranged it so I could live in his mom's house, which sounds weird, but she wasn't living there during the time, and so we got to move in and be neighbors together, and our love for these guys goes so deep, and so because of that, because we love them so much, and because we're friends, I feel like we're friends by proxy, right? So we're all friends by proxy? Okay, good. Awesome. Okay, we'll see. You can determine afterwards if we're friends based on that response. But it is so good. My wife, Jean, and I pastor Soul City Church in the heart of Chicago. And I told my kids yesterday when I landed that I would not tell them what the temperature was here, because I was straight down to shorts and flip-flops the second I got off that plane. I was still getting off the plane, changing into a t-shirt. It is so good to be here during this time of year. Cannot say that. Please don't tell my family how nice it is here this weekend. And as Joel mentioned, I wrote a book recently on prayer, and it's been something I'm working on for the last 2 years, and I'm so glad that it's out in the world. And the whole idea of the book, and what I want to talk about just for the next few minutes, is how we can uncomplicate prayer, right? Because it can be so complicated. And that's really all we're trying to do is let's uncomplicate prayer. God's not the one who complicated prayer. We are the ones who've complicated prayer. And so that's what the whole idea of the book is. So I just want to ask a question of you this weekend. And all you have to do with this one, this is an easy survey. All you have to do for this one is raise your hand if this is true of you, okay? So if this is true of you, just raise your hand. How many people here would say that you are amazing at prayer? Like, you are absolutely awesome. You are killing the game at prayer. Like, if they handed out honorary PhDs in prayer, you'd have one, if not two. Like, if anything, raise your hand if this is true of you. If anything, you should be praying less because you are so good at prayer. Is that, oh, really? No one? Yeah, me too. I've been praying most of my life, and I find myself getting stuck and stalled out. So let me ask you this. Anyone here ever found prayer to be difficult or challenging or hard? Oh, there's everyone. Or confusing? Exactly. And I think what so often happens is we try and we set this expectation for ourselves that we have to figure prayer out. We got to figure it out. And how many times have you found yourself, I just don't pray enough. I should be praying more. We have this idea that we're supposed to perfect prayer, but what I want to contend this weekend is that the point of prayer is not perfection, it's participation. That's the whole point of prayer. It's not perfection. It's not getting to some status or leveling up in prayer. It's just about participation, because here's a really encouraging word for you. You're never going to figure out prayer, ever, in your life, period. Isn't that an encouraging word? Aren't you glad I came all this way to tell? Because that's actually not the point. The point is participation. And if participation is the name of the game, all of us can play. You can start right where you are at with God. And so what I want to look at for the next few moments is, how do you participate with God in prayer? More specifically, what do you do while you're waiting for God to do what only He can do? What do you actually do while you wait for God to do what only He can do? And what I want to do is build off of Joel's amazing message last weekend, if you were here, where he talked about how we seek God in prayer, we seek direction in prayer. I want to build off that a little bit by just asking this simple question that's going to frame our whole time together here this weekend. Are you living in the direction that you're praying? Are you living in the direction that you are praying? In other words, are you moving in the direction that you're asking God to move? Is your life already moving in the direction that you're asking God to move? Are you aligning your life with the lines that you are praying? Are you living in the direction that you are praying? So I want to show you what it looks like, what we do while we wait for God to do what only He can do, by looking at an Old Testament story. In fact, it's found in the book of Joshua chapter 3. So if you have a Bible with you or you got it on your phone, you can go ahead and open that up right now, Joshua chapter 3. I need to let you know a few things about what's going to happen next. If not, we got it on the screen, so don't worry about it. We'll have it on all the screens for you. But let me let you know a couple things. First of all, in my church, Soul City Church in Chicago, we participate in the teaching time. Okay, so I do my part, and then everyone who's in the room does their part. And what does that mean? That means that they go, or oh, that's good, or yes, or there's laughter when I tell a joke. They participate. Sometimes they get to help him, Jesus, right? It's true. So we participate. So can I count on you to participate as we teach through the Bible together and read through this? Can you do your part? Yeah. Can you do your part? Yeah. Okay, good. Because what's going to happen is I'm going to pause in certain words in this passage. And when I pause, it's not because I've lost my place. It's because I want you to shout out the next word. It engages us together. Okay, does that make sense? Again, not feeling great. Okay. Let's see. All right, so let me give you some context as to Joshua chapter 3. This is after the people of God have been rescued and delivered by God out of Egypt, out of captivity, out of slavery, and they've started a journey, to say it lightly. They've been on a 40-year journey, actually, to move into a land that was long promised to them by God. They've been led by Moses. Moses led them out of Egypt. You're familiar with the story, right? But where we come to in Joshua chapter 3 is that they're not there yet. And Moses is gone. He's died. And there's a new leader, Joshua, who's leading them into the promised land. And it is literally on the horizon. They are almost there, but there's one last obstacle, and it's a pretty significant one in their way. It's the Jordan River. They have to cross over the Jordan River to get to where God has promised them. So let's dive into Joshua chapter 3, verse 1. It says, early in the morning, Joshua and all the Israelites set out from Shittim and went to the Jordan, the river we just talked about, where they camped out. And what are the next three words? They camped out before crossing over. Let's try that again. They camped out before crossing over. So they got there, they got to the river, but before they could cross over, this was their last big obstacle. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, how hard can that be? It's just a river, right? I mean, you just walk right through it. Well, it's actually incredibly significant, but because by best guess and counts and estimates, there were about 2.5 million of them. That's probably a lot more than you had in your mind, right? By best guess, around 2.5 million of them. We go, okay, well, it's a lot of people, but again, how hard is it to get across a river? And that's true. During the normal times of the year, most of the year, the Jordan River is at best maybe 100 feet wide or 200 feet wide, and it's about anywhere from 4 feet deep to about 10 feet deep. But as we're about to see here in a minute, it's actually at flood stage at this moment. And we're gonna read that in just a second. And when the Jordan River's at flood stage, it is up to a mile wide with a fast-moving current and significantly deeper. So now it's a pretty significant obstacle to cross. Like, think about it, 2.5 million people having to get across that. That would be like me. Has anyone here ever been to Chicago? Raise your hand if you've ever been to Chicago. Oh, there you are, awesome. You spend your summers there, great. So in Chicago, there's a river that runs through our city. It's beautiful, right, to look at from a distance. If I were to ask, this would be like me asking the entire city of Chicago to cross the Chicago River with me, with no bridges, no water taxis. And that's a big deal. And then on top of that, you have to watch out for all the trash and the tires and the bodies. I mean, right? It's the Chicago River. I mean, there's a reason no one swims in that river, okay? Many reasons. That's a significant task, get a whole city to cross over that river. That's what this is like. And so this is what happens in verse 2. It says, after 3 days of them camping out before crossing over, after 3 days, the officers went throughout the camp, giving orders to the people that when you see the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord your God, and the Levitical priests who were carrying it, the Ark of the Covenant represented the sort of physical manifestation of God. It's how they knew God's presence was with them. So when you see them carrying it, you are to move out from your positions and follow it. And then it says this in verse 4, then you will know which way to go, since you have never been this way before. Since you've never been this way before. Now, this is incredibly important to pay attention to. How they have to be looking at this river rushing in front of them. And what Joshua is saying to them is, when you see God move, follow him. Because you've never been this way before. How would you possibly know how to go or how to cross this river? And my hunch is, I just want to pause on that idea there. My hunch is that there's folks here who are at a point in your life that you've never been to before. Maybe you're at a new point in your job where you've been handed more responsibility. You've never been this way before. You're leading a team now, or you're leading a department now. You've never been this way before. And maybe there's times where you show up for work and like, I don't know what to do. How could you? You've never been this way before. For some of you, you're in a relationship and you're wondering kind of where's this relationship going, right? And the other person may not even be aware that you're in a relationship with them, which is probably a good conversation to have with them at some point. You're like, I don't know where this relationship is going. Well, how could you? You've never been this way before. In our house right now, we have a preteen and a teenager. We have never been this way before, ever. Like it's a whole new season of parenting for us. And so rather than feeling shame about not knowing which way to go or getting stuck, which is lots of times what we do when we don't know what to do, we do nothing, or stalling out or stopping, can you just trust that God is actually moving? And it's okay that you actually don't know which way to go because you've never been this way before. And so what Joshua tells the people to do is this. Verse 5, he says this. Joshua told them to, what's the word here? Joshua told them to consecrate. That's probably a word you have not used today or maybe ever. Consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do amazing things among you. That word consecrate that we just said a second ago, it's about as Bible-y a word as you can get. What does it even mean to consecrate yourself? What it means is to prepare yourself, to get yourself ready, to actually do whatever and what only you can do to get ready for what only God can do. That's what it means to consecrate yourselves today. In other words, do today what only you can do because tomorrow God's gonna do what only He can do. So you better get yourself ready. You better get things right. You better actually align your life in the direction that you want God to move. That's how you consecrate yourself. And thank you. You must be from Chicago. And I wonder how many times in my life I've missed movements of God. I've missed God moving in my life, not because He hasn't been faithful, but because I haven't been ready, because I haven't been looking, because I haven't been watching, because listen, if I'm being really honest, I actually haven't been expecting Him to move. Yeah, I prayed it, but I mean, God, I got contingency plans, God, in case you don't. Right? That's what it means to consecrate yourself. No, God, I want to get myself ready for you to do what only you can do. I wonder how many times I've missed God showing up in my life because I hadn't set my life up for God to show up. My life just wasn't set up for God to show up in my life. Now, consecrate is something that you may never say the word the rest of your life, but you actually already know how to do this. In fact, you're pretty awesome at consecrating yourself. This idea of getting yourself ready. Think about it. For those of you who are single, right, and you're going out on a Friday or Saturday night, or if you can remember back to when you were single and you're gonna go out to the club or wherever I don't know. I don't know where people go. I am not in the scene. I am old. I was never in the scene, but wherever it is that people go, what are you doing before you go out? You're consecrating yourself. What does that mean? It means you're in the mirror, getting dressed, getting your best outfit on, right? Doing your lipstick, getting them Spanx out, right? Let's be honest, you're getting yourself ready in the mirror for what might happen later in the night. You might meet someone, you might fall in love with someone. That's what you're doing. I'm preparing myself now for what may come later, right? Or if that metaphor doesn't work for you, for those of you who've ever applied for a job before and you've filled out a job description or you've polished up your resume, what are you doing when you're polishing up your resume other than making the truth sound better? What you're doing is you're consecrating. You're just adding all kinds of adjectives and all kinds of superlatives to make it sound more significant. You're hoping by doing that in this moment, it'll lead to a job at the interview or tomorrow. Does that make sense? That's what it means to consecrate yourself today. And what I found to be true for my life and the times that I've seen God move like never before in my life, there's something about tomorrow's provision of God that's tied to today's position. Test that to be true in your life. There's something about tomorrow's provision that is tied to my position today, the position that I actually take with God today. There's just something about, like when I'm praying and asking for God to move in my finances and to provide for me, there's something about me actually beginning to live in that direction, to consecrate myself, to get my financial house in order so that I can see God move. Or when I'm asking for God to restore a relationship, there's something about tomorrow's provision, how God's gonna move, that's tied to today's position of me waiting and praying and hoping for God to reconcile. But today what I can do is own my part in the situation. I can ask for forgiveness. I can offer forgiveness. See how that works? That somehow about the amazing thing God's gonna do tomorrow is tied to what I actually choose to do with God today. Sin is a way that we consecrate ourselves by confessing our sin and saying, God, these things have kept me out of presence with you. These things have kept me at a distance from you. These things are ways that I believe that I actually have a better way than you. So I confess it. God, I clear it out. I let go of those habits and those patterns so that I can be ready, God, for you to move tomorrow. I'm going to do this today. Does that make sense? So Joshua tells the people to do that, to consecrate themselves, to position themselves today for God's power and provision to be on display tomorrow. And then I want you to jump down to verse 15. We're going to look at actually what happens, how God comes through. Verse 15. Now, as we said a second ago, the Jordan was at flood stage all during harvest. So it is, deeper, wider, faster, right? It's at flood stage. Yet as soon as the priests who carried the ark reached the Jordan, and look at this, what does it say? And their feet what? Their feet touched the water. As soon as their feet touched the water from where? From upstream stopped flowing. In fact, it piled up in a great heap, a great distance away. Isn't this an awesome picture? A lot happens in this. They move forward in faith, but God, what they could not see is that God had already actually been up to something a great distance away on their behalf. But they had to actually get up to the water's edge and put their feet to the water to see that God had actually already been moving and working on their behalf. Now, you think about your life and the places where you feel stuck or where you're asking God to move in your life, and what it can seem like or feel like is it's just a mighty rushing river in front of you. God, I don't know how to get there. I don't know how to get through the season. And all you see is all your circumstances right in front of you, just racing and rushing by. And you're just so desperate and you're wondering and you're worrying, is God actually ever going to show up? And so you're just watching the river go by, and what you don't even realize is that far off on your behalf, upstream, God's actually already moved on your behalf. He's already done it. You're worried about, God, I don't know if I'm ever gonna get a job. Like I'm so desperate, God, to actually have a job, right? God, if you just provide a job, I don't even care if it aligns with my talents, passions, and abilities. I just need a job at this point, God. I need some money to pay these bills. And what you don't realize is in all your desperation, and I wonder if God's gonna do it, what you don't even know is that somewhere at some company you don't even know about, there's been some changes in management, and someone took a new position in a new state, and it's opened up some new opportunities so that when you walk in to apply for that job, God's already moved on your behalf. Isn't that powerful? Some of you have been worried. You're like, oh man, I don't know if we'll ever find a good church. And maybe you showed up here today and you've been church shopping. Anyone here have a church shop before? Why is that so unbearable? That's terrible, right? Moving from church to church, and you're wondering, man, I don't know, God, we just want to find a good church. I want our family to grow. I want our kids to love it. And what you don't realize is that many years ago, long before you got here, people prayed this church into existence. They gave of themselves for this church to be here, that God brought the right leaders at the right time to have this church be here as it is today so that you can walk in and go, oh, this place seems nice. You have no idea what you're actually already even stepping into, what God has actually already been doing on your behalf. This year, my wife and I have committed for 2020 to give more than we've ever given to God before, and like significantly more than we've ever given to God before. And when we did our 2020 praying and planning for this year, we came up with a number, like it got specific. God, we want to give this much back to you this year. And I'm going to be really honest with you so that you don't think like wrongly of me. When I saw that number, I had to get up and walk away from the table. I was like, oh boy, that's a lot. God, the math doesn't work. Like I don't see it. I don't get it. And yet I knew in my heart that this is what God was leading our family to give back to him this year. And all I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to get up to the water's edge and go, God, I don't know where these resources are going to come from. God, we want to give this much to you specifically this year. What I'm doing is I'm trusting that, God, you've already provided a way, that you're going to provide the resources that we need at the right time, and it's usually the very last minute for us to be able to give to you what you've given us. You've already called us to give to you, God. And so I'm just going to believe that upstream, you're actually already working on my behalf. There's a phrase that church folks like to use, and folks in our church like to use, they like to say about God, won't he do it? It's a great thing to kind of rally. Won't he do it? Won't he do it? What I would say from this story is he's already done it. He's already done it upstream on your behalf. God's already been moving in his perfect timing so that when you step out in faith, guess what you are stepping into? His faithfulness. There's not a step of faith you can take where you're not stepping into God's faithfulness. Every time you step out in faith, what you're stepping into is a work that God has already done on your behalf upstream. You couldn't see it, you couldn't recognize it, but as soon as, what does it say? As soon as their feet touched the water's edge, they stepped into God's faithfulness. And I just wonder, as we're starting the new year, maybe though, you've been in a season where you're going, God, I don't know if you can do it. I don't know if you'll do it. I don't know if you'll come through. I wonder if the whole reason that you showed up here today or that you're watching online or listening or whatever is it's because you just need to be encouraged. Would you just take one more step with God? Would you just trust in his goodness? Would you trust in his faithfulness? Would you be willing to step out in faith one more time, to participate with God, to move in the direction that you're actually already asking God to move? How many of y'all know, does anyone here know that God actually goes before you? You know that concept? Anyone here know that God goes before you, right? We believe that, like you can get hyped like, yes, God goes before me. And that is true, but guess what? You gotta keep going. You have to keep going. Yes, he goes before you, upstream. He's already actually working on your behalf, but you have to keep going. And I just wanna encourage you that there will never be a step of faith that you take where you are not stepping into the faithfulness of God. That's just how it works when we participate with God in prayer and in the way that we live. Now look what happens, verse 17. It says, the priests who carry the ark of the covenant of the Lord, I love this, stopped in the middle of the Jordan and stood on what? Stood on dry ground. Isn't that so cool? Like they just stopped and said, this is a movement of God. And they just stopped and they stood there, right there on the dry ground while all of Israel passed by. The whole nation had completed that crossing over of the Jordan River. This is what it looks like to participate with God in prayer, to begin moving in the direction that I'm actually asking God to move. And this is why God invites us into a relationship with him so that we can participate with him in the work that he's doing in our life. Do you know that just about every one of the miracles that you look at in the life of Jesus that he does, just about every one of them are connected to participation. The first miracle that Jesus performed, turning water into wine, he tells the servants at this wedding feast, he says, here's what you do. You go dip that ladle into the water, and when you bring it out, it's gonna be the best wine you've ever had. But you gotta dip it in you gotta feed into the 5,000, right? This big time miracle where Jesus fed 5,000, actually more than that, but 5,000 people who were there. Where did it start? Someone had to bring their Lunchables to Jesus. Someone had to say, I don't know, there's these crackers and these salami things. I don't know what those are, but I'm bringing this to you. Someone had to participate. The friend who had been paralyzed his whole life and had lived his whole life on a mat begging, his friends had to get up on a roof and literally tear the roof off to lower their friend into a room where Jesus was so that he might be healed. They participated in that miracle. The woman who suffered bleeding her whole life, internal bleeding, knew she just believed in that old promise about the Messiah, that there would be healing in his wings, and so she reached out and just grabbed the cloak of Jesus, knowing that she would be healed. She participated in that miracle. This is what God is actually inviting each and every one of us into. This is why I love the African proverbs. Our African brothers and sisters actually get this one right so well, so much more than we do. They say this, they say that when you pray, move your feet. Isn't that good? When you pray, move your feet. Like so often we think about prayer, it's like, okay, yes, I gotta come pray and get quiet and sit in my right little chair and do my little. They say, no, when you pray, move your feet. Start moving in the direction that you're asking God to move. Live in the direction that you are actually praying. When you pray, move your feet. Align your life with the words that you're saying in this prayer. Move your feet. How many of you, if you've ever had a car die, anyone ever had to push a dead car before? You ran out of gas or the battery died? Anyone? Yeah, I'm from the Midwest. Anything can happen, right? We're just ready for that. And so, you know that when you're trying to push the car and you're trying to steer it, it's much harder to turn the steering wheel when the car's not moving, right? When it's just stuck there, it's like, oh, right? But as soon as it starts moving, you get a couple little steps, a couple pushes, you can turn that wheel, right? Same is true of your life. So when you begin moving your feet in the direction that you're praying, you are setting yourself up for God to move in your life. You are able to see God's movement in your life. Listen, it's one thing to pray, God, I just want you to I just want to partner. God, I just want to partner in this life, right? I want to be married. Maybe you're single or you're single again. And you're like, I just want to partner. I want someone I can share this life with. That's a good prayer. That's a valid prayer. It's an important prayer. And so you've been praying, God, is there one good person? Is there one good person in the greater Phoenix area? God, please, you just provide. And it's one thing to pray for God to bring a good person into your life, but it's another to keep hanging out where good people aren't at. You keep going back to those same old spots. They're not there. You gotta move your feet in the direction that you're praying. It's one thing to say, God, this is the year I want you to move in my life. It's the year of Jubilee, God. I want you to just flood resources into my life, God. Just provide for me. But you're still stuck in old spending habits and you're buying things that you don't need. Right? So we got to move our feet. So one thing to say, God, I just want you, I want this to be the year of health, God. 2020 is my year, body, mind, soul. I want it all to be aligned, God. And so I wanted you to move. This is the year I'm going to get healthy, God. And yet you're still eating Taco Bell at 3 a.m. for the third night in a row. He's a way maker, but help him out. You got to help him out, right? This is what it means when we participate with God in prayer. And we've seen this personally in our own lives. Like I said, we live in downtown Chicago. Our kids have grown up in Chicago public schools. And if you know anything about Chicago public schools, it is a broken system, inequitable in every way. And our kids, thankfully, have been in a great school, but that's not the story for most kids in Chicago. And I don't know if you know this about Chicago. This wasn't true when I grew up, but in the city of Chicago, you don't just go to high school. You actually have to they start recording your grades in 6th and 7th grade. Then you have to go through a number of tests. And then based on all of those scores from all of your grades and all of your tests, then you actually can apply to the schools that you're eligible to. You may not even actually get into those schools. Based on all your scores, then you kind of have your list of schools that you're eligible for, and you still may not even get into those. And so knowing that we decided to raise our kids in the city, that this was coming, Jeannie and I, my wife and I have been praying for our kids for years now. God, why does this feel harder than college was for us? God, would you just provide? God, we're gonna trust you to provide a great school for our kids. A place where they can thrive, where they can grow, where they can expand their passions and talents and abilities, and they can be a light to their school, right? We have been praying that prayer, but you know what else we've been doing? We've been hiring tutors. In fact, yesterday morning, I was up at 6 a.m. taking my son to take the last big test that will determine what his high school options are. We've done tutors, we've been preparing, we've been helping them. We've emailed every person in power in the city of Chicago that we know, because that's how things get done in Chicago, right? We've done everything we can do. And then we're trusting God to do what only he can do. It'd be one thing for us to pray that prayer all these years and never once fill out an application for him. It'd be one thing to pray all those prayers and never once bring in a tutor or help them get to the testing center on time, to wake him up in time, to get there yesterday on time. Do you see how this works? We actually participate with God in prayer. And so the question is, are you living in the direction that you're praying? Are you moving your feet, moving your life in the direction that you're asking God to move? Because the way I understand prayer and the way I've seen it to be true of my life, when I've seen God move on my life, is really just this. It's all about me doing what only I can do, while God does what only he can do. There's a difference. Me doing what only I can do what only you can do, while actually waiting for, counting on, depending on God to do what only he can do. The invitation is to participation, and it all has to do with the direction that you are aligning your life and asking God to move. And so I just wonder, is anyone here willing to align their lives in that way? God, I want to see you move, but I'm going to start moving in that direction in faith, God, because I believe that when I step out in faith in this way, yes, you're a miracle working God. Yes, you're already doing something on my behalf, but I'm going to participate by stepping into your faithfulness. And I just wonder if there's anyone here that needs to be encouraged to do just that today. Any areas of your life, any habits or patterns of sin in your life that are keeping you from presence with God, from moving into what God has for you next. The amazing things he's gonna do for you tomorrow begins with what only you can do today. And so I just wanna pray with you, and I wanna pray for you towards that end. And so here's what I want you to do. I'm gonna ask you to stand. We're gonna close our time in prayer by by praying maybe a little different for you. So go ahead and stand, put all your stuff down, and you can stand up. And at our church, at Soul City Church, we like to take postures of prayer. It's just a way that we like to, play around with prayer. We let our body tell our soul what to do, or, our soul tells our body what to do. And so we just try and pay attention. And so I think we did this last time I was here. I can't remember, but we pray with our hands open. We just think that's a great way to pray, right? You pray with your hands open. And maybe you grew up in or around church and you were told you're supposed to fold your hands when you pray. That's not in the Bible. They just do that so you don't poke the people next to you. It's really all about crowd management. So this is, would you be willing to take this posture prayer? And then we're gonna level up, okay? You ready for the next one? Would you be willing to put, just as best you can in your seat, in your row, put one foot in front of the other? And don't do it to a point where you fall over. Right? We just one foot. And what is that saying by doing that? I'm stepping, God. I'm gonna move in this direction, God. Whatever I gotta do, I'm gonna do what only I can do. And God, I'm counting on you to do what only you can do. My hands are open to receive from you what only you have for me and to offer myself whatever I can do. Does that make sense? Can we pray together right now and close our time that way? God, thank you that you are a way maker. You are a miracle worker, God. You are light in the darkness. All of that is true of who you are. God, that you're already working on our behalf long before we ever even came up with the words to pray, to ask you to move. So God, would you help us to do what only we can do? We can count on your faithfulness, God. Even if we can't see it in the moment, God, even if all we see in front of us is a mighty rushing river and we cannot see past our circumstances or past this current season, God, we want to believe in faith that you're already working on our behalf and your best is always our best. You always have our best in mind. And so God, would you help us today to take whatever step we need to take forward in faith, to let go of maybe things that we were holding on to, God, old habits, old ways that keep us from trusting you, so that we can move in the direction that we're asking you to move. God, thank you for this church. I pray your blessing, your continued blessing on this church, on Joel and Jen and the staff, their family. God, we pray for a movement of God this year in this church like they've never seen before, and that they would do everything they can do to keep up with your spirits moving in this place. We pray this in your name. Amen. Amen. Thank you all so much.
Then you enjoy having Jarrett with us here this morning. Well, he's going to be actually hanging out in the lobby at the Nook, and we have copies of his book for sale. If you'd like to pick one of those up and shake Jarrett's hand and tell him thank you for coming and being a part of our family for this week. Before you go, we just wanted to take a moment and just celebrate a great start to a 2020, but then also look forward to next week when we kick off a brand new series called The Anatomy of Intimacy. So Joel already mentioned it. We've been really excited about this series for a long time, so make sure that you come back here, right here, same place next week, and we look forward to seeing you.